Hey, this is Malcolm341. In this video, we're going to look at a tool I created to speed up UV mapping. UV mapping is painful at the best of times, so let's check it out. So first, let's check out how I used to do UV mapping. So basically what I would do is I would go to the UV menu here, and I would go into the planer, and I would select the options box here, and then I would hold Control and Shift to add a button to the shelf, and left click. And so I would add this guy here, and basically as I wanted to do different UV maps, I'd click here, and then I would set my options here. So for example, let's say I wanted to go along Z. So we'd go Z, keep width, height, whatever, bounding box, yep, cool, and then I would hit apply. And then you'd get a planar projection there, and then, whatever, I do some modeling, need to do some more UV mapping. Oh, okay, I need to like map the top or whatever. Grab the top, and then come back into this button again. Okay, I want to go along Y this time. Okay, great. And then do that, and so on and so forth. And then what I found was I was coming back into this menu so often and switching these options. I just found it really annoying. The menu's really big. It gets in the way. I kind of just want to quickly be able to access all of these different tick boxes because I use them quite a bit for different mapping methods. And also what I found is, so let's say I wanted to set the texel density of this face that I just did there. So I planar mapped it. And then I have to come here into the channel box and I have to select these two and type my desired texel density. So in this case, I want to do 400. And so each time I wanted to go and do a planar map, like let's reapply that one to the front here, I'd go to the options, I'd go along Z and check those options, project it, and then have to go back up here and type 400 each time, or whatever my desired texel density was going to be. And so I just thought that was really tedious. So I wanted to come up with a tool to automate that whole process. As well, there's a couple other mapping options that I like to use in here. Like I like to use automatic mapping for some stuff. I like to use best plane. I used to do planar quite a bit. I like to use my Gridify UV script. So I just kind of wanted to put it all in one place. So what I came up with was this guy here, the UVMapper. So you just click this button to launch it, and then you get this little floating window, and you can kind of put it wherever you want. Try to keep the window to a minimal size so it doesn't really get in the way, so I can kind of just have it open while I'm working. So what's really cool is it's got all of your mapping types at the top level here, just visible all the time. You got X, Y, Z, camera. Then you have best plane, automatic, Gridify UVs, your unfold, your straighten, and your texel density stuff. What you can do is you can press any one of these buttons. So just grab this guy. So we're going to project along X. So that's going to be there. So you can just go boom, one click, and you've got your X. And there's your Y. There's your Z. You hit C, that's for camera mapping. So there's your camera map. What's really cool about this is that each one of these map types has these modifiers here and this modifier here. So I'm going to show you what those do. So remember, we did the planar map, and then we had to go over here and set the texel density or whatever. So here, check this out. This is super cool. So I've built the texel density directly into all of the map types here. So if you're going to do a planar map along Z, and you want the texel density to be 400, you just click it and boom, there's your perfect texel density along 400. Let's say that your texel density is not 400, let's say it's 200. So you just change that number and hit enter to accept it. And then all of these map types update with your new texel density. So if we go Z again, you get a different texel density. So that's all in world space. So that's 200 units equals whatever the map type is. And then that cool thing is that it works for all these types. So it's the camera's set to 200, the Z, the Y, the X, all of the map types are all set to 200. And where this can be super helpful, so here, let's just go along Y there, just top down, so it makes sense here. Where this can be super helpful is when you're working on ground planes or walls. You're going to want your texel density to match up between your different ground planes that might be different models or whatever. So the cool thing is that it'll work across multiple objects and be seamless with its texel density. So here I'm just going to hide the edges there so we can see it at the same time. And then I'm going to go along Y, and I'm going to set my texel density to 400 because that's the one that I like. And boom, totally seamless across both of the assets. And they're not stacked or anything. So they're in world space projected, and you get your seamless texel density across it. So if you're doing a lot of ground terrain mapping for a game or something, and you're going to be modeling at the same time. So let's say you're doing some modeling. Oh, you're making the ground plane like this or whatever. And then it can be kind of a hassle to match all that stuff up later. So you can just do your projection along Y and boom, you get a perfect texel density seamless, and it's all lined up in the UV editor as well. So you don't have to go around and snap it back later on. And now you might be asking, well, okay, that's cool. Like the texel density thing is awesome. That's very useful in a lot of situations, but sometimes I'm working on a prop or whatever, and I just want to do a classic planar map like I could in the default Maya options box. And so that's where these guys come in here. So when you have this tick box turned on, that's basically projection width height. That's the stuff that's stored here in the channel box. When you have that turned on, it uses this value to set the texel density when it does the projection. So the cool thing is when you turn that guy off and you project along the same axis or any axis, here we're going to go along Y, it's going to project it into the 0 to 1 space because we've turned that off, but we have keep width height ratio turned on. And so that'll give you the width height ratio, because this is a rectangle, mapped in the 0 to 1 range. Now, if you turn both of these guys off, this is going to ignore this, and we'll do the same map there, so along Y, and it's going to project it into the 0 to 1 space without the width height range ratio turned on, and so you get a 0 to 1 projection, even though that's a rectangle. So basically, like I said, I wanted to expose all these things. I kind of do my mapping, and then I set all these little tick boxes and like put all these little modifiers and stuff on it, and I found it to just be too painful to keep going into the menu and switching all of that stuff. So I mean, now we can do really fast stuff like, keep width height, okay, boom, Y, done. What's this? This is along Z, and like I want to do texel density along Z. There's the 400 texel density, and then along X, I don't want to do anything. I want to just put it in the 0 to 1 space, and so there you go. So super handy, speeds up a lot of my mapping, and then it's all in one place. I don't have to have like all these weird buttons and stuff to grab other functions and things like that. The next one down is the best plane tool. So if you guys are not familiar with this, basically what it does is it tries to project the planar map onto the best plane that it can find. And so when this is useful is basically if you've got a surface, and right now it's all right angle aligned, so it's really easy. You can project top, side, or front. But if you've got a surface like this, that's like at a really bad angle, and the transform's frozen, let's say we project along X here. So let's go along X, and you'll see it's all skewed because X is basically not planar aligned with the world or whatever. So the cool thing about this one is if you use the best plane tool instead of all these guys, so we'll go best plane, it will try to project it perfectly along that axis, even though that axis is not aligned. So see, it actually put down a perfect one. And then you might be wondering, I wanted it to be perfect, like mapped in whatever. That's cool. We got you covered because that was to the texel density, but maybe you don't want texel density. Maybe you wanted it to be perfectly aligned there. So best plane, there you go. Again, keep the width height, and if you don't want to keep width height, then just click it again and you get the planar map. So pretty cool. Okay, and then the next one is automatic, which can be super helpful in a lot of situations. So same thing, these settings are again obeyed by the automatic. So probably the most useful one with automatic is actually to set it to your exact texel density, because you can do a rough layout of your UVs at the exact texel density that you want. So my texel density that I like to use is 400. So we'll just select it and click boom. And there you go. And so it's automatic mapped every face from every axis to exactly 400. So this is cool. We'll set this to 200 and reapply the automatic map. And you can see it's actually changing the scale of the checkers because it's changing the texel density. So this is a crazy texel density, really high res. So that's super helpful as well. So let's go back to 400. That guy one more time. And so again, these modifiers again do the same thing. So if you turn that guy off and you do the automatic, you get this. You get the 0 to 1 with the keep width height. And if you turn that off and do the same thing, it'll stretch it into the 0 to 1 space, which can be handy for certain situations. And then I want to show you actually a kind of a bug that I fixed that you can't actually do through the Maya standard interface. So this is pretty cool. So now in Maya, when they do their automatic map, if you have scale on the object, so let's say I'm going to scale that into a rectangle. And I'm going to go into UV and I'm going to go into automatic and click it. Watch what happens. When I automatic map it, it actually takes the scale into effect, which is undesirable. And see how these are all stretched? So basically, I found that like pretty annoying. My wife actually asked me like, why does the automatic map always project and go all wonky? And I kind of looked into it and I found out that the scale is inherited. And so when I created this button here, it ignores the scale. So here, check this out. So even though I have the scale on this, when we project with my tool, you get perfect squares. And even if you scale it back down and you reproject again, you get perfect squares. So just a little improvement on the Maya default behavior. Okay, and next up, I put the Gridify UV script. I built it right into this script because I use the Gridify UVs tool so much. So if you haven't seen that before, I have actually a whole video on it, 2 videos on how to use it or whatever, but we'll just do a quick demo here. So I'm just going to grab these faces and I'm going to click this magic button and it's going to put those into a perfect grid. And then what I found is that was awesome, super helpful. But then I was always going into here and then I was like, oh, I'll unfold along V and then I'll straighten UVs and blah, blah, blah. I'll do a bunch of crap in there. And so what I found was useful is actually put the tools right here. So basically I'm going to, grab these faces, gridify them, and then they're squished. So I want them to be squares. They're rectangles right now. So I'm going to unfold along V. And then boom, you get the nice perfect squares, but you might see, oh, they're like, maybe they're a little like off or something. Sometimes you'll unfold and there'll be like a little bit of like warble in it or whatever. So I also put in the straighten U and straighten V and straighten U and V. So in this case, I'll just straighten everything. So straighten U and V, let that run and boom. And now everything's perfectly gridified. And same with the unfold. I put UV, U, and V. So if you wanted to go UV, unfold, you get that. If you wanted to go along V, you get that. If you want to go along U, you get that. So plenty of different uses here, but I just find that I use these tools so much in conjunction with the Gridify UV script that basically wanted to just build them all into one quick little interface since I'm always kind of in this area for a lot of the UV mapping. And I also built the standard straighten UV shell tool, which basically is right here, this thing here. It's going to be useful in certain situations to map kind of curvy shapes or like roads or something. So basically you select an edge and then you click the shell button and that'll try to give you kind of the best straight thing. And then from there, you could in theory click this guy, the straighten tool. And I didn't quite get it there. So it just kind of depends on how you want to do your UV mapping. A lot of the guys at work use this, so I put it in there as well. And then finally, if you don't want to do a projection and actually set the texel density and project at that time, but you want to come back to something that you've already projected and then copy paste the texel density, that's what these guys do here. Get texel density and set texel density. So let's say this little guy here, I like the texel density of this. So you basically just grab a face and you go get. And then on this guy here, you can just click set. And the last selected one will be stored in memory. So you can actually come up here and you can just go set again. And so you can go set, or whatever you wanted to get some crazy small texel density. Again, you can just grab it from there and go on there and set it. So that can be helpful as well, because normally the get and set texel density is so buried down in this thing in here, or I don't know. I can never remember where it is. This thing's pretty disgusting, so I try not to use it. So I came up with this little clean guy that kind of has all the stuff that I care about to do UV mapping. I don't really need any of the other stuff that often, or if at all. So that was a quick demo of what all the different tools do in here. So let's put it to practice. Let's map this kind of weird shape that I have here and see how the tool can help us. Okay, so first I'm just going to go into UVs and just get those out of the way so they're not in the 0 to 1 space. And then I'm going to go into face mode and I'm just going to grow my selection to there, let's say. So let's just do a planar map along Y. So boom, there we got one. Cool, got that guy done. Let's go to the bottom, same thing. Go there to there, same thing, planar map along Y. Then switch into UV mode and just go unfold U and V just to get rid of that overlap. Unfold U and V to get rid of that overlap. Cool, so those guys are mapped. So one thing that I find saves a ton of time when I'm UV mapping is I'll actually separate parts of the model into separate objects because it's easier to select things. Like it's going to be kind of painful to select this stuff. So I'll show you what I mean. So I've got those part mapped and I'm going to grab that and then I'm going to invert my selection. You just have to convert back to faces here for whatever reason. And then I've got a button for combine and separate, so we're just going to use those hotkeys. So I'm just going to separate. And the reason that I did that is so I can get quick selection. So that part's mapped, so we're done with that. So basically, I want to grab all of this, and same thing, I'm going to separate that guy out. Okay, great. And so now we're ready to map this. So this one's going to be really easy because it's a cylinder. What we can do is I'm just going to isolate the selection here. And then I'm going to select some edges to use as the border edge to cut along, and then, I'm going to go into multi-mode and also select some faces at the same time and do the Gridify UVs. Boom, you get that in one click. And then it looks like, what are we, unfold U? Yeah, unfold U. And then I'm just going to rotate that guy there. Rotate 2 more times. Okay, cool. So we've got the base of it mapped there. Isolate selection again. So we got these 2 guys done. And now another trick that's really good is if you can in UV mapping, don't bother mapping things that are exactly the same. So see how I've got all these repeated elements here? I'm just going to map one, and then it'll be way easier to just reduplicate the asset over and over again to get that mapped on all the other ones. So here I'm just going to select these guys here. Got all those selected, and I'll hit delete. And then I'm going to select the faces on this guy, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do a separate. So that's its own separate object again. For this guy, let's try, here, let me just isolate selection again. That's this little button up there. I just have a hotkey for it. So for this guy, let's try just grabbing these faces here, and let's gridify those. And then let's unfold along V. Great, and so we got that guy. Let's just straighten the UV shell just in case there's a little bit of warble. And then for these side bits, I think we could just put a planar map through them. Yep, planar map along X. So boom, get those guys there. And then I'll just, let me get this UV shell. For these guys, I will just do a stitch together, and my stitch together is always smallest to largest. So that means the small one's going to go to the large. So stitch together and stitch together. Whoops, it doesn't rotate it. That's weird. Just flip those guys. There we go. And go stitch together. There we go. Cool. So we got that guy UV mapped, and I'm just going to isolate selection again. And like I was saying earlier, now that we've got this guy mapped, all we need to do is I'm just going to go duplicate the asset and rotate. I'm going to hold down J on the keyboard to snap rotate to 45 degrees. And then I'm going to press Shift and D to smart duplicate, duplicate with transform. And I'll get that 45 degrees each time. Shift, 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 boom. Okay, and so like I said before, the reason that I deleted all the other ones is because it's way faster for me to just UV map that one and then duplicate it around. So I've got perfect UV mapping on all of them without having to waste any time on it. That is a trick I learned from a guy on Need for Speed. So thanks to the Need for Speed team. Working with them, I learned some pretty cool stuff. And then the next thing here, okay, same thing. We only need to do one of these. So I'm just going to separate that into its own object, isolate selection on it. And this is cool too. We can use the Gridify script on this as well. So let's just go into multi-mode and pick an edge here. And let's put another texture seam here. And then select all of the faces and click the magic button. Boom, get that. Great. And then what direction is that going to be? Along U, I think. Let's try it. Unfold along U. Yep, cool. And then straighten just in case there's a little bit of warble. Isolate selection back out, and we're pretty close to being done here. So I'm going to grab all of these guys, since those are all UV mapped. Oops, not that guy. And I'm going to do a combine that back into one object. And then again, because I've already UV mapped it, I'll just duplicate it down here. And we'll just snap it along this guy, let's say. There we go, snap to fit right there. isolate, oops, where is it? Isolate selection on this guy, yep. And delete. And combine this. Combine all of this here. And just do a weld vertices with a really tiny tolerance, just so it welds everything back together that was separated when I separated the UV shells. Say OK to that. If you haven't done so already, I would go into Modify and then go down to Layout. Go to the Options box. Turn on Unfold 3D. Pack resolution, sure, 2048. Preserve 3D ratios on. Translate shells, 2048. 8 pixels of padding and 8 pixels of padding. Distribute into a full square and hit Layout. And you will get that. And then once you've set that once, here I'm just going to undo it. Once you've set that once, then you can come in here and you can press Control L on the keyboard to just lay out. So this can be handy as well as you're unwrapping stuff just to get it all laid out. So this is a terrible layout. It's awful. Like some of these should probably be stacked on top of themselves or whatever. But that's basically just how quickly you can get your UV mapping done and ready for your UV layout process by using the tool. So pretty cool. And then again, if you've watched the Texel density video where we talk about hitting your average Texel density, another thing that you could do is you could just come in here to make a plane quickly. Let's say, going to say make a plane at 400. Great. So let's pretend that's my target Texel density. And we could just do the get Texel density. That's now set to 400. And on this guy here, you could just do the set and boom. That's actually the correct Texel density. So now you must spend hours and hours of your life trying to figure out how to pack this into the 0 to 1 space, but keep that target Texel density. Or let's say that your Texel density was something higher. Let's say it was 200. 200, and same thing. You can do a get there, and that'll store it forever, and just do a set, and then that's that. And that'll be really hard to pack that into a single 2K texture. Probably impossible without it looking super repeated. If you've already purchased the full script pack, this will be a free update, so you just need to download it again to get the new stuff. If you haven't purchased the script pack yet, you can grab the script by itself, which also includes the Gridify UV script, or you can get it in the full script pack, so take your pick. Thanks for watching, everybody. Without viewers like you, this channel would not be possible. If you like this video, please purchase something from the online store. Each purchase goes towards creating more video content and keeps the channel ad-free. See you next time. Have a marvelous day.